Hello, welcome back to the show. And there's only one story in town today, which is, of course, the nightmare before Christmas, the doom and gloom that is the budget. So let's get a response now from the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Mr. Richard Tice. Good evening, Richard. How are you?
Outside Parliament, I've got my gloves on, and this Chancellor has just crashed the British economy, frankly, into the freezer. I mean, she crashed it last year with her devastating first budget, the impact on businesses, on farmers. She crashed it for the second time in the run-up to this budget, and then now we've got, on all the numbers, Alex, are disastrous. Growth is down over the next 4 years. The jobs numbers are down. Recruitment agents are telling me that businesses have stopped hiring, but all the other data is bad. So borrowing is up by over £20 billion in this year alone, over £60 billion in the next 4 years compared to the OBR's March forecast. Welfare spending through the roof, and but within 5 years will be an extra £70 billion a year. Government spending overall soaring, completely out of control. And as for taxes, Alex, you touched on it just before the break. I mean, she is the second highest ever tax-raising Chancellor. She's only been in office for 2 budgets, some £70 billion a year of higher taxes. And as I say, all of the data is heading in the wrong direction. But Alex, I do have some good news. And that is, I think we've just seen the last budget by this learner driver of a Chancellor.
You really think that she's not going to stick around? You think this is enough to force her out?
I think over the next few months, the economy, sadly, will continue to remain in the freezer. It's gone nowhere in the last 3 months. From everything I'm hearing, it's heading south, not north. And I think that a desperate Prime Minister will do desperate things. And at some point, she will be gone. And then at some point, he will be gone, as the Parliamentary Labour Party realised that these two are taking the country down the road of hard socialism and towards disaster.
One of the things that seems to have stuck in the craw of many a listener, Richard, is people saying, I work all the time, I get up early, I try and pay my own way, and I'm having to pop up people who frankly are taking and not contributing. And the thing that seems to have grieved a lot of people is the lifting of the 2-child benefit cap. But that is something that Reform UK had previously proposed.
So we had proposed it specifically on the basis of for working people. Those who are working and who may have just lost work. So we'd actually restricted it very tightly. Inevitably, as is always the case, we're misrepresented in the press. Nigel's always been very, very clear on that. We've got to incentivise work. This budget, I'm afraid, incentivises welfare across the board, and it disincentivises work. We've got to make work pay. And the tragedy of all is when businesses tell me they're going to stop hiring young people. Just imagine that, because of the damage from this budget. And we want to encourage and motivate and make risk-taking pay, make being a small business owner pay, make being an entrepreneur, taking risk, and making that worthwhile. And this does all of the opposite. And too many people now are basically saying, get me out of here.
It seems to me that Reform are likely the next government in waiting. If you look at polling, it's been pretty stable until now. But yet, are you worried that, if Nigel is right and if there is an early general election as soon as 2027, that what you are going to inherit is essentially an economic doom loop, and it's going to be very difficult to change the direction of travel? Do you think that Reform will have what it takes, or do you think you'll have to come into government? You might potentially be Chancellor, let's say, and you yourself will stand at the dispatch box and say to people, I'm afraid the news isn't good.
Well, you know what they say, Alex, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And there's no one tougher than Nigel and I and others here in the senior leadership team. And we know that what we've got to do is cut vast amounts of wasteful, unproductive government spending, quangos, bureaucracy, civil servants doing not a lot, working too much from home and being unproductive. If we cut the vast amounts of daft regulation, scrap stupid things like net stupid zero, then actually we can get spending under control, we can get growth kick-started again, and yeah, it won't be easy, of course, but what you need is business-like people who've got some real-world experience, who know how to get stuff done. and that's Reform UK absolutely in spades.
Have you spoken to any people from the Labour Party? Because it seemed to me this was a very political budget. Everything that had been advised that the government needs to do, get rid of the bloated welfare state, hasn't been done. In fact, more is being handed out, it seems. Are the Labour backbenchers that you may have spoken to pleased about this, or do they look pretty sad?
Oh, they all look pretty sad. They've been sad for many, many weeks now, and essentially I think many of them realise they are one-term parliamentarians, and yes, they trot out the sort of the puppet lines today, but the reality is the only good news that people should hope for from this nightmare is that we've seen the last budget by this Chancellor and quite probably the last budget led by this Prime Minister.
Wow, I'm glad you've got that crystal ball. Now, I just want to ask you one more thing, which is there were farming protests today still, despite the Metropolitan Police saying, no, you cannot go ahead. A cavalcade of agricultural vehicles turned up down Whitehall, and it turns out a number of farmers were arrested. Now, the party leader for Reform UK, Nigel Farage, has posted his support for those who were nicked by the coppers, saying that Reform UK will provide legal support to every farmer protesting peacefully today. Tell me about that.
So yes, I understand that some farmers may have been arrested, and we are already putting them in touch with lawyers, and Reform UK will help them get that sorted. We made that very clear. I spoke to many farmers, jumped on a tractor at about 6:30 this morning, heading in towards central London, and yeah, I mean, you know, our deepest sympathies with the farmers from the catastrophe last year. I've got many farmers in my constituency of Boston and Skegness raging, fuming about what is going on, and we shouldn't be covering farmland with ridiculous solar panels, and we need to free them up from this dreadful family farm tax.
Richard, I understand you need to be away at 5:10, and it's exactly that time now. Look what we did there. Thank you ever so much for joining us from the very chilly College Green.